In July 2015, FIFA held a press conference to announce its latest decision regarding which countries would host the World Cup. A strange man walked up to the stage, stood in front of FIFA President Sepp Blatter, and threw money in his face, declaring that this was campaign money to support hosting the world's biggest football festival in North Korea. The man was immediately removed from the press conference, but the image of Blatter and the banknotes fluttering to the ground had already become a symbol of FIFA's rot and of the relationship between those at the top and green pieces of paper. A scandal spanning more than 20 years inside FIFA, exposed in early 2015, became one of the largest corruption cases in the history of world sport. 11 senior FIFA officials ended up behind bars on charges including fraud, corruption, and money laundering. President Sepp Blatter was forced out and banned from sports-related activities until 2027. Alongside that came a large-scale investigation targeting the World Cup held in Canada in 2022. So, what happened inside FIFA? Where did the roots of corruption begin? And is Sepp Blatter really innocent in all of these scandals? To truly understand what has happened and what is still happening inside FIFA, we have to go far back into the past, to when FIFA was founded in 1904. Different football associations across Europe joined hands to establish a unified organization dedicated to organizing tournaments and events in the sport of football. At that time, the people in these associations were amateurs. They tried to give everything they had out of love and passion for the game. Even though FIFA was small and had no financial resources, football was still loved, continued to develop, and exploded in popularity over time. Then, in 1971, the FIFA president at the time, a famous football administrator named Sir Stanley Rouse, was challenged by João Havelange, the man who would later completely change FIFA's trajectory. Havelange had once been an Olympic swimmer and was then president of Brazil's Sports Confederation. He was one of the most powerful men of his era, widely known and determined to expand his influence. He recognized the tight connection between sport and politics, and FIFA was no exception. At that point, Havelange realized he had a real opportunity within world football's governing body. There was no reason not to jump in, especially when Rouse had become controversial over issues tied to apartheid in Brazil and Africa, as well as the membership status of those countries within the organization. As a result, Rouse was unpopular across the African continent. They viewed him as a hostile representative of the British Empire. Havelange immediately exploited this to gain an advantage in the next FIFA presidential election. In FIFA presidential elections, each member nation gets one vote, meaning there are a very large number of votes worldwide. Havelange realized that to win, he would need enormous support from Africa, which made up about 30% of the total votes. So he promised that if he became president, he would pour money and resources into developing football in third world countries and in Africa. To make it even more certain, brown envelopes were presented to delegates at the election in Frankfurt like seasonal gifts. As expected, Havelange officially took the presidency and began the capitalization of world football's governing body. FIFA, which had started as a European group bound together by love for football, effectively became a disguised business. But Havelange was not an economics expert. To fulfill the promises he made before taking office, he needed money. FIFA needed money. And then, in October 1974, Sepp Blatter stepped into the game of the powerful, becoming the person who proposed the idea of partnering with major brands to develop commercial sponsorship. The first target was a global soft drink corporation, Coca-Cola. Blatter carried a suitcase, made the pitch to the partner, and succeeded. In 1976, the press conference announcing the partnership between FIFA and Coca-Cola officially took place. Under this deal, the beverage brand committed to supporting youth tournaments and development programs. This also became one of the origins of modern sports sponsorship. That announcement attracted many other brands to FIFA, along with massive advertising contracts: Korean Air, Philips, Canon, Gillette, and others. All of this happened within the first 4 years of Havelange's rule. But the most significant relationship among them was Adidas, and the influence of the kingpin Horst Dassler, the German head of Adidas. Dassler's influence was enormous and lasted for decades. FIFA's partnership with Adidas was unusually durable, especially at that time when television technology was exploding. If you appeared on broadcast, the whole world would know your brand. So it was no surprise that Adidas did everything it could to secure exclusive sponsorship rights for the 1982 World Cup in Spain. But that still wasn't enough for Horst Dassler. He wanted to fully capture the live TV broadcasting rights for World Cup matches from FIFA. He created a company called ISL, short for International Sport and Leisure. The final step was obtaining the signature of President Havelange, who had just had his account topped up not long before. At that time, Sepp Blatter was serving as secretary, Havelange's right-hand man, and a key aide to his respected boss. But instead of reporting what was happening, Blatter also wanted a share of the big, greasy pie. The entire FIFA family knew what was going on, but nothing could stop the rot growing from deep inside the organization. Havelange was a clever man. The moment he sensed something was going wrong, and that even his own take was no longer enough, he jumped out of the FIFA presidency right after the 1994 World Cup in the United States ended. The chair immediately began its search for a new owner. Two men entered the race to sit on it, Sepp Blatter and Lennart Johansson, the president of UEFA. Johansson held a major advantage because he had the confidence of all of Europe. His campaign goal was to completely cleanse the organization of profiteering and restore transparency, an obvious reference to the corruption of the previous leadership. This also directly hit Blatter where it hurt. Meanwhile, Blatter struggled in the race because he did not have meaningful trust from any region. Both men understood something. In the eyes of others, they were just naive football politicians. If they could secure the endorsement of someone who met the public standards, someone respected by the federation and adored by fans, their legitimacy would rise dramatically. By luck or design, the man who chose to endorse Blatter was a figure who had won 3 Ballons d'Or in a row in 1983, 1984, and 1985, and who also had a World Cup and a European Championship to his name, the French legend Michel Platini. At that time, Platini was just beginning to find his footing in football politics after retirement. Two major ambitions met, and they formed an alliance that would later appear extremely durable. For $1 million, the outer campaign was settled. But what about the inside? They applied the same electoral strategy Havelange had used: overwhelm regions with large voting blocks. South America, home to giants like Brazil and Argentina, had only 10 votes. But North America, Central America, and the Caribbean were a very different problem. They had as many as 30 votes in the politically complex landscape of that region. Jack Warner, the head of football in this region, granted the island nations the independence they wanted, including the right to vote in FIFA presidential elections, whether the country was as large as Cuba or as small as Turks and Caicos. Because of that, he wielded enormous influence over the ballots there. The person who helped Jack Warner fully understand the Caribbean's massive leverage was Chuck Blazer, the right-hand man of Jake, i.e. Warner. Blazer depended on Warner to bring in television contracts and other revenue streams to enrich the Confederation, or more precisely, to enrich themselves. In terms of corruption, few could match these two, because every independent island state in the Caribbean had its own vote. Anyone who wanted to become FIFA president had to keep them happy. And then there was Asian football's AFC. A very rich, very powerful Qatari businessman, loyal and influential, also mattered. They recognized his importance, and he too wanted to gain something from the 1998 election. So the two sides ended up in the same boat. Mohammed, likely Mohammed bin Hammam in this narrative, officially became Blatter's campaign manager. With everything he needed, Blatter confidently entered the FIFA Presidential Congress held in Paris, France. Under the bright lights and alongside brown envelopes, money was handed to delegates resting at FIFA hotels. Many African delegates switched sides right before the vote. Even a few European countries betrayed Lennart Johansson. The final result: Sepp Blatter took the FIFA presidency, setting off a chain of collapse that was only fully exposed in 2015. World Cup bidding, FIFA's gold mine. In Havelange's era, together with ISL's exclusive media contracts, FIFA functioned like a disguised ATM. But when Horst Dassler died of cancer in 1987, ISL began to lose its strength. In 2001, ISL declared bankruptcy with debts reportedly reaching $300 million. FIFA then entered a period of financial crisis, right as Blatter had only just warmed the presidential seat. Trouble immediately arrived, including corruption allegations tied to Blatter's relationship with ISL. FIFA's then Secretary General, the transcript name is garbled, exploited this, pointing to accounting irregularities to try to remove Blatter in the next election cycle. Blatter denied all accusations. With backing from Charles, unclear in the transcript, they redirected the attack toward Michelle, framing it as an attempt to divide and sabotage the family. As for FIFA's finances, they argued FIFA had nothing to fear because the money was already in Blatter's pocket. So where did that money come from? From selling future tournaments in advance. That helped Blatter dominate the 2002 re-election and then retaliate by kicking his rival out of FIFA. FIFA is powerful because it controls the World Cup. Countries will strain themselves to win the right to host the tournament. The World Cup is effectively an optimal method to build a nation's global image, so effective that you can't achieve the same impact by any other means. For Germany, hosting the 2006 World Cup reportedly produced a clear economic boost, about $1 billion in a single year, plus a 5.4% increase in tourism the following year. The World Cup is one of the rare events broadcast in virtually every country. In other words, it is an event worth 1,000 pieces of gold for FIFA to earn money, and it also makes the FIFA president powerful because of the influence it gives over nations worldwide. Havlang understood this clearly, and so did his right-hand man, Blatter, when he began his term in 1998. The hosts for the 2002 and 2006 World Cups had already been set. The first World Cup plan for Africa was 2010 in South Africa. The transcript says 2014, which appears to be a slip, as a way for Blatter to fulfill earlier promises made when seeking votes in those regions. In 2009 to 2010, FIFA began the bidding process for the 2018 and 2022 World Cups. The decision on which countries would win was made by the Executive Committee, a group of 24 of the most powerful figures across world football federations. Of course, with figures like Chuck Blazer and Jack Warner in the picture, it was hard to imagine the vote could be transparent. Right before the ballot, FIFA's Ethics Committee revoked the voting rights of 2 delegates from Tahiti and Nigeria because they were trying to sell their votes. But that was only 2 cases among many others that were uncovered. Experts reviewing the bid files for the 2018 World Cup judged the strongest dossier to be England. For 2022, it was the United States. Yet FIFA's announcement at the end of 2010 shocked the entire world. Hosting rights for 2018 went to Russia and for 2022 to Qatar. That decision didn't just surprise the media and the public, it also stunned members of FIFA's own executive committee. People could still see the stone-faced expression of Chuck Blazer when the results were announced, as if he had just seen the sun set in the east. As for Blatter, he turned back toward the other members with a look of defeat and said, "Get ready. We're about to be in trouble." Unsurprisingly, FIFA became the focus of media criticism and outrage among sports fans worldwide, especially amid bribery accusations. The only question on everyone's mind was, why Qatar? Qatar was not an ideal host by conventional standards. According to reports submitted to FIFA, temperatures in May, June, and July can reach around 42 degrees Celsius, hardly suitable for football matches. Infrastructure was also not appropriate. At the time, the country reportedly lacked stadiums, lacked sufficient hotels for tourists, and had inconvenient transportation networks. To host a World Cup, they would almost have to rebuild the entire country. Compared to the US bid, it was night and day. So when Qatar won the bid for the 2022 World Cup, FIFA became the target of relentless media attacks. They don't care about football. They don't care about us. All they care about is money. You could see lines like these everywhere, from newspapers to social media like Twitter. And it was clear that critics had grounds for their outrage. According to research figures cited by The Guardian, more than 6,500 migrant workers died during the World Cup preparation period from 2010 to 2020, mostly from India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. an average of about 12 deaths per week from those 5 countries. The true number could be higher because it does not include migrants from the Philippines. However, according to numbers Qatar itself published, only 37 people out of 2 million migrant workers died. Back to the core question, how did Qatar become the host? The answer is fairly obvious. Qatar had to get the executive committee members to vote for them. Politically, Qatar was seeking a stronger voice on the international stage and wanted to step out from the shadow of its much larger neighbor, Saudi Arabia. One way to do that was through sport and football. Qatar might not have had an outstanding national team, but its owners had one thing in abundance: money. They wanted to present themselves as one of the biggest spenders on earth. Many major sporting events and competitions were sponsored by Qatar. The most visible example was their acquisition of, and heavy spending on, PSG. It was only a matter of time before they wanted a World Cup of their own. This was not merely the ambition of the Qatari Football Federation, it was a national project. At first, Qatar's bid team was small, and some members had never even watched a World Cup match. They also had no experience bidding for a major event. At FIFA's media breakfast event in Cape Town, South Africa in 2009, where countries set up booths to showcase their potential to host the 2018 and 2022 World Cups, Qatar's booth was empty and largely ignored. Meanwhile, at England's booth, one of Qatar's strongest rivals, the press swarmed and camera flashes fired non-stop because David Beckham, one of the greatest players of his generation, was there. Qatar, by contrast, seemed to have nothing. No one knew who the Middle Eastern prince sitting quietly in the booth was. But Qatar's trump card was not someone who liked attracting attention. You may remember this figure, Mohammed, the president of the Asian Football Confederation. He was the only person with real experience in football politics, and he also had significant influence inside FIFA. From the beginning, bin Hammam clearly understood Qatar's obstacles, such as the weather and the lack of infrastructure. It took time for the bidding team to persuade him to support the project. He could provide the tools and methods needed for Qatar to win. He knew whose votes to seek, whom to meet, and what kinds of offers to make. That is exactly what Qatar did to secure votes in 2010. 10 months before the vote, Qatar agreed to provide sponsorship money for an African national team in Angola. This event was attended by 3 members of FIFA's executive body, and it was there that Qatar began making its offers, starting at $1 million to support activities of the federation. The price was later raised to $1.5 million, followed by friendly handshakes like old friends. This event was later reported by someone on Qatar's bid team, Phaedra, name unclear in the transcript, in December 2010 in an article by The Times. Qatar denied the accusations completely. But on the other hand, they allegedly threatened her with anonymous calls, emails, harassment, and social media account attacks. In the end, she was forced to sign a sworn statement that she had lied. Otherwise, they would pursue legal action. Ultimately, she publicly stated she had lied, again in the press. What the truth really was, only God and those directly involved know. Vote-buying efforts were allegedly ongoing. There were also reports involving Thailand, a country with a seat on the executive committee. Qatar and Thailand allegedly reached a major deal right before the vote. Everyone involved denied it was connected to the ballot, but the media did not believe them. Another executive member, named garbled in the transcript, reportedly sold land to Qatar for 32 million euros, and he too denied any connection between the sale and his vote. But that was still nothing compared to the Qatar-France exchange. Just weeks before the vote, the UEFA president at the time, Michel Platini, highly influential in shaping how European Executive Committee members would vote, had a lunch with French President Nicolas Sarkozy. And guess who was also at that lunch? The son of the Emir of Qatar. Platini said he was not told in advance about this meeting. According to him, he received a clear message from President Sarkozy that it would be best for the country if he voted for Qatar instead of the United States. In other words, Platini's vote, and by extension, much of the European bloc, was effectively directed to support Qatar. And what did France receive in return? Soon after, the Middle Eastern states' sovereign wealth moved to purchase Paris Saint-Germain, the main football club of Paris, and poured massive money into it, bringing global stars like David Beckham, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and later Neymar and Lionel Messi. Beyond football, major commercial agreements allegedly followed between the two countries, including Qatar's purchase of Rafale fighter jets worth around $7 billion and orders for large numbers of Airbus aircraft. In this narrative, the decision for the World Cup to be held in Qatar was shaped at the highest political levels. But of course, the Qatari government continued to hold its head high, arms folded, acting as if nothing had happened. Do you still remember Chuck Blazer's shock? He was from the Confederation of North, Central American, and Caribbean football, and there was no obvious reason for him not to deliver his vote to the United States. But his close ally Jack Warner did not see it that way. For Warner, and for some other executive committee members, the day Qatar entered the race was the day money started coming in. Many of them likely would not still be sitting in those seats in future cycles, so they tried to grab everything they could while they still could. In other words, Jack Warner betrayed Blazer for money. Qatar's victory was shocking to the public, but to FIFA's deep core, it was an entirely predictable outcome. Blazer understood exactly what FIFA would look like if Qatar won, and he personally voted for the United States. He tried to persuade other members to vote for the US as well, so that unnecessary attention would be deflected, allowing them to extract profits more quietly over the long term. But he failed. That was the real reason behind his expression and his words immediately after the results were announced. And in this narrative, it was also this decision that indirectly led to more than 6,500 deaths during the construction of infrastructure for the World Cup in Qatar. Sepp Blatter's hunger for power. After the 2018 and 2022 World Cup bidding concluded, Blatter was also approaching the end of his current term. Before his first election, he had declared he would serve only 2 terms. But he broke that promise and stayed for a 3rd term, and, according to Michel Platini later, he wanted to cling to the chair until the grave, to die with it, and even be buried alongside it. Platini was not the only one furious. Many believed Blatter could not restrain his ambition. Over 13 years in power, he gained fame and global recognition, but not everyone praised how he ran FIFA. Blatter demanded loyalty from those who followed and supported him. But his problem was that he was not loyal to his political allies. The case of Mohammed bin Hammam is an example. As we've seen, bin Hammam was an extremely devoted and loyal supporter of Blatter. Yet, from the beginning of that relationship, he also wanted the presidency once Blatter's term ended. When Blatter broke his own term limit promise, bin Hammam proved his power and capacity by helping bring the World Cup to Qatar, something that completely surprised Blatter. Blatter realized the limits of his own power, and he did not accept it. He immediately moved to push bin Hammam out of FIFA. According to bin Hammam, in 2009 there was an election in Asia for a FIFA position he held, and another candidate ran against him. He said he was shocked that Blatter supported that other candidate. "I thought we were friends, but he saw me as a threat and wanted to get rid of me. So I thought I would make his life uncomfortable." After that, bin Hammam stood for office and began directly attacking Blatter's leadership, calling for transparency in all FIFA operations. At that time, the media assessed that unseating Blatter would not be simple. He was sitting too firmly in the chair. He used the billions of dollars earned from World Cups to reinforce the foundations of his own power, so it would not be easy for bin Hammam to challenge him openly and transparently. At the CONCACAF Congress held in 2011 in Miami, United States, bin Hammam wanted to attend to meet representatives from the American region as part of his campaign. But he was refused a US visa in a very puzzling way. In his words, "It felt as if someone didn't want me to be there." And at that very Congress, Blatter was the one who announced a $1 million development aid package for CONCACAF, then still controlled by Jack Warner and Chuck Blazer. The move looked like an open provocation toward bin Hammam, and the AFC president walked straight into Blatter's trap. Perhaps bin Hammam had established some communication with Warner to request one more opportunity to persuade the committee members. That request was granted through a special Congress organized in the capital, Port of Spain, in Trinidad and Tobago, Warner's home base and power center. All Caribbean Football Association members were invited to the Hyatt Hotel. Jack Warner also owned a travel company, which reportedly received $363,000, likely connected to arranging the trip. Chuck Blazer believed this was a bad idea and strongly opposed the event. In a letter he sent to Warner, he said the meeting should be held publicly and transparently, not only for the Caribbean region. In other words, Blazer also wanted a share of the pie Ben Hammam was bringing. Even though he supported Blatter, he didn't want Warner to eat alone. Blazer made some threatening moves, but Warner didn't care much, and the Congress went ahead as planned. On the first day of the Congress, Ben Hammam delivered his presentation as normal, explaining what he would do for FIFA and world football. But something strange happened at the end. Delegates were told about a gift to help member federations, collected in a discreet location within the hotel grounds. As delegates entered one by one to receive the gift, they were handed brown envelopes filled with cash, specifically $40,000. When a delegate from Puerto Rico asked what the money was for, people from the Caribbean Football Organization reportedly said it was for him to use for anything he wanted in football. Clearly, that money was distributed to almost everyone. Most recipients accepted it enthusiastically. Only a few returned the gift. Some people even reported the distribution. Within just a few hours, the news reached Chuck Blazer in New York. He reportedly went almost insane. Whether his rage came from the fact that Jack Warner took money without cutting Blazer in, or simply because Warner was corrupt, no one can say for certain. Either way, Blazer had worked with Warner for 20 years, and now that bond completely collapsed. Blazer decided to report Warner to senior FIFA officials in Zurich, Switzerland. To this day, many still do not understand why Mohammed bin Hammam would execute such an overt, reckless corruption move. He was clearly a shrewd operator with decades sitting at the top of Asian football. Bin Hammam claimed, "I had no bad intention to bribe anyone." FBI investigators, meanwhile, believed he had been encouraged to spend money to help Caribbean nations, only to fall into the trap set by Blatter. But regardless of the internal maneuvering, to the public this was corruption, pure and simple. Both Jack Warner and Mohammed bin Hammam suffered consequences from the Trinidad and Tobago episode, and the man who delivered those consequences was none other than Sepp Blatter. He used the moment as an opportunity to eliminate his rival from the presidential race and solidify his grip on the chair. He offered bin Hammam a way out if he would withdraw. Enter the whistleblowers and the FBI. The rot inside FIFA did not go unnoticed. There were long-standing observers, including journalists in the UK, who focused intensely on corruption within world football. One of the most active was the journalist Andrew Jennings, a veteran investigator who spent years trying to expose FIFA's internal corruption. The FBI had started looking at FIFA even before the controversial 2010 vote. It was difficult for FIFA not to end up in the FBI sights, given how long it had been surrounded by corruption allegations. The problem was, the FBI didn't know which thread to pull. They lacked a clear insider who could explain how the internal system worked. At this moment, Jack Warner wanted revenge, specifically against Chuck Blazer, and more broadly against FIFA. Jennings was the person Warner contacted to provide inside details. The documents suggested Blazer was enjoying benefits he should not have had, luxury apartments in Miami and the Bahamas, and even high-end vehicles. His total assets were estimated at $15.3 million, with unclear origins. Many checks connected to Warner were repeatedly sent and received internationally. All of this appeared in Jennings' article series in the summer of 2011, which drew the FBI's attention. The FBI realized catching Chuck Blazer would be straightforward. But if they wanted to destroy the corruption inside FIFA at its root, they needed Blazer as an insider. So they began digging into his record and discovered he had filed no tax returns and paid no taxes for 15 years. On top of that, suspicious foreign funds often had to pass through correspondent banks in the United States before being transferred elsewhere, so the FBI could gradually trace many of Blazer's anomalies. Once they had enough evidence, all they had to do was make Blazer an offer he couldn't refuse. On November 30th, 2011, Chuck Blazer left his office at Trump Tower and sensed that something was off. He told his assistant to go ahead to the steakhouse first. He himself got out of the van climbed onto a scooter, and headed to a dining table where two FBI agents were already waiting. He understood his situation immediately. "Mr. Blazer, with all the charges you're currently facing, you could be looking at 75 to 100 years in prison. But we're here to give you another option." It didn't take long for the FBI to secure Blazer's cooperation. After the conversation, Blazer's assistant told him, "It's just taxes. Pay them and everything will be fine." Blazer replied, "Marie, you're just a fraud, an obese con artist from Queens. Karma catches everyone. What's coming will come." At that point, Blazer was not a whistleblower in any heroic sense. He was a criminal caught red-handed, then leveraged to help catch other criminals, trading cooperation for escape or a reduced sentence. Blazer's job was to tell the FBI where wrongdoing was happening, who to watch, and which rooms mattered. They gave him a keychain with a hidden recording device inside. Whenever you go to dinner with anyone in FIFA's inner circle, just put the keychain on the table, and we'll handle the rest. And Blazer became the investigation's master key, pointing investigators toward people who had never previously been in the FBI's crosshairs. A major target, of course, was Jack Warner, more specifically, Warner's sons. They laundered money for their father around the world, especially through the United States. It's not surprising that the FBI moved quickly and arrested them. Everyone except Jack Warner himself, because he was a senior government official in Trinidad and Tobago at the time, and the FBI had no jurisdiction to arrest him on the spot. As agents were handcuffing Warner's sons, an FBI officer stepped toward Jack Warner and whispered, "This is your chance to help your sons get out." But contrary to expectation, Warner simply replied, "I hope they find a good lawyer." He helped no one, not even his own sons. In that chaotic period, Blatter quickly appointed another figure to fill the CONCACAF presidency vacancy, and at FIFA's Congress in Budapest in 2012, he promised to reform the federation's machinery. But the irony is that the newly appointed president, Jeffrey Webb, was an even bigger player than Jack Warner. Almost immediately after taking the seat, Webb allegedly began demanding bribes in a manner so blatant it was almost absurd. Evidence of his wrongdoing was quickly collected and handed to the FBI by Charles, i.e., by Blazer's cooperation. What is strange here, however, is that no evidence directly linked Blatter himself. He continued doing everything to consolidate and project his authority, reportedly including launching a Blatter Academy in Palestine. People who had worked with him told the media that his ambitions had grown so large he could no longer restrain the beast within him. Football kept growing because it is a kind of emotional sustenance that everyone needs, and FIFA was the organization feeding it to the world. At one point, Blatter even reportedly entertained the idea of receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. That might sound ridiculous, but Blatter himself likely did not realize that his time on the throne was approaching its end. The empire collapses. The storm hits FIFA, 2015. The hurricane that tore through FIFA began in 2015 and swept away many of its most notorious figures. The first major domino was Chuck Blazer's guilty plea in a sealed hearing at a U.S. federal court. The FBI understood that if they made that hearing public at the time, it would become an indelible stain in football history. Around Blazer, many other figures were also being rolled up by the Bureau. On May 27, 2015, in Zurich, Switzerland, law enforcement stormed FIFA's main hotel and arrested 14 senior officials, including the CONCACAF president, Jeffrey Webb. 2 generations of football officials were accused of abusing their positions to commit corruption, fraud, bribery, and money laundering. These accusations shocked the world because they were the kind of charges usually associated with mafia organizations or global drug cartels. Yet now they were attached to the world's largest football body. An indictment against Jack Warner was also filed. Warner denied it, and to date, as described in this transcript, there had been no final judgment against him. Blatter was not among those arrested. He even won the next election because he still had significant support, especially from African countries, where many viewed him as the man who helped bring smaller nations onto the global stage through football. But the arrests were a slap that made Blatter realize he was not invincible. Everything happened under his watch. It was natural that he became the face of a FIFA riddled with corruption and decay. From that point, Blatter could no longer play invisible. His chair began to shake violently. Not long after he secured another term, just 6 days after the arrests, pressure reached a breaking point. Even Blatter could only stay on camera for so long. He announced his resignation, choosing to walk out the front door of FIFA headquarters rather than wait to be thrown out the back. To many observers, this looked like a way for Blatter to dodge responsibility and reduce the risk of coming directly into the FBI's crosshairs. But the story did not end there. The next man widely expected to take the seat Blatter left behind was Michel Platini, then UEFA president. Many people believed Platini had the legitimacy to lead reform, at least until a photograph was leaked, an image suggesting Blatter and Platini were involved in a transaction that did not look clean. In 2011, right before an election, Blatter was running to win again. A payment of 2 million Swiss francs was transferred from FIFA to Platini. The FBI already had Blatter in its sights. It only needed a pretext, and this could not have been a more perfect one. The situation was truly terrible for Platini. Swiss authorities immediately opened a criminal investigation into Blatter. But the central question was, who leaked all of this information? No one knows for certain. One theory is that it was someone who deliberately released the story to destroy Platini's chances right as the presidency was within reach. That would also explain why Platini attacked Blatter so fiercely across the media, calling him an outright traitor. In the end, FIFA's ethics committee issued a 90-day suspension for both Platini and Blatter from all FIFA-related activities while the investigation proceeded. Then, in December 2016, both were found guilty of ethics violations and were banned from all football-related activities until 2028. After 16 years of rule, Blatter's golden era came to an end. With both Blatter and Platini no longer eligible to hold the presidency, at least until 2023, Gianni Infantino, who was UEFA's Secretary General at the time, quickly ran for the position and won. Only then did Platini realize Infantino had not been his ally for a long time. Infantino had major backing from Russia and Qatar, and he maintained the World Cup hosting rights in those countries that had been decided under Blatter. In 2021, after more than 50 people were charged, FIFA was declared a victim of football corruption and was awarded $201 million in compensation by the U.S. Department of Justice. Blatter and Platini, despite being punished by the Ethics Committee, were never charged by the U.S. Department of Justice. In 2022, both were acquitted by a Swiss criminal court in connection with the 2 million Swiss franc payment. Blazer died in 2017 before serving his sentence. Jack Warner remains at large and, to this day, has not been successfully prosecuted by U.S. authorities, despite their efforts. Of the 22 committee members who voted for the 2018 and 2022 World Cup hosts, only one remains. It is unclear whether corruption still exists within FIFA today. But the 2015 scandal was a major wake-up call for anyone tempted to distort the meaning of football, the world's king of sports.